Good morning, and we are coming to the end of this week's reading. We've read the Doctrine and Covenants 6, 7, 8, and 9, but there is also a bonus part of this record that if you look in the February part of Come Follow Me, it will tell you the bonus. And in that bonus is the Voices of the Restoration, and it goes through the translation of the Book of Mormon. Is what it is on today, and so basically it's just letting us know a little bit about what it was like, and from first-hand accounts. So in April 1829, the month when sections 6 through 9 of the Doctrine and Covenants were received, Joseph Smith's main work was the translation of the Book of Mormon. We don't know many details about the miraculous translation process, but we do know that Joseph Smith was a seer, aided by instruments of God that God had prepared. True transparent stones called the Urim and Thummim, another stone called a seer stone. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about Urim and Thummim or any other thing like that in this, but what I do want to point out is Joseph took some time to understand how he's supposed to do this. First of all, remember, he sent some of the figures from the plates to see what some scholars would do with them, maybe hoping to have somebody translate them or whatever, but it was obvious that in the end that he was to translate them. He was supposed to bring forth the Book of Mormon. He knew that. How that was going to happen, I don't know if he really understood completely until, with David Whitmer, after the comments and things that he got from the scholars at the time. I think it was then when Joseph Smith realized he really needed to translate, and so he used the objects that he had, and he was told that he would translate with it Urim and Thummim, but it sure seems like it took a bit to understand what he was supposed to do and work out what he needed to do. That's what happened with Martin Harris. It seemed that he worked it out, he could translate, and he got better at it. By this time, when he starts translating, of course, we know that Oliver Cowdery tries to translate and gets frustrated when he can't a little bit. But Joseph Smith had taken some time to learn that, and now he was ready to really translate. He was bolstered by the Lord, as it says in section 9, and now he was ready to translate in earnest. When asked later to relate how this record was translated, Joseph said that it was not intended to tell the world all the particulars. I think he really just didn't. I think the Lord, he says, is not. I think from that, he wasn't supposed to tell all the particulars. I don't think something really deeply spiritual for yourself is not always intended to go to the world in all the particulars of it anyway. And he didn't need to. Why should he? Because that was his process. What we have is the miracle, and we see it. It's like saying, well, I've got this TV here, and here's the particulars of how it actually works. We get signals through either through a cable or satellite or something, and it's received, and go through all the particulars of what it does to get that image on the screen, how the LED lights work, and all this. You can spend a few lessons in school if you want to find out those particulars, but really, if you're going to watch TV, you just need to know how to turn it on and how to change the channels, basically, and then you've got it. And that's what I think he's saying here, is it's not really intended for everybody to know every little thing about how it's translated. What it is important to know, that it's a gift and power, by the gift and power of God. I hope that helps. That's the way I picture it, is that if it's there, it's there. And the following statements are eyewitnesses to the translation process, support Joseph's witness. Now, just before, let's read them, and then I'll probably discuss some things other things I've learned in my reading. I like the fact that there's a box here that Hiram had give to temporarily hide the plates. So Emma, when my husband was translating the Book of Mormon, I wrote a part of it as he dictated it, each sentence, word for word, and when he came to proper names he could not pronounce, or long words, he spelled them out, and while I was writing them, if I made any mistake in spelling, he would stop me and correct my spelling, although it was impossible for him to see how I was writing them down at the time. Even the word Sarah he could not pronounce at first, but had to spell it, and I would pronounce it for him. I find that interesting. Here we got Emma telling exactly what he was doing. He could not see what she was writing, but if it was wrong, he would know. And this was because of how he was translating or dictating. Is almost as good. The plates often lay on the table without any attempt at concealment, wrapped in a small linen tablecloth, which I had given him to fold them in. I once felt the plates as they thus lay on the table, tracing their outline and shape. They seemed to be pliable, like thick paper, and would rustle with metallic sound when the edges were smoothed by the thumb, as one does sometimes thumb the edges of a book. So that is her experience with it. She knew they were there. She knew that they weren't supposed to be seen, so she didn't try to, but obviously it was okay to, she probably had to move it to clean and things like that anyway, so. My belief is that the Book of Mormon is of divine authenticity. I have not the slightest doubt of it. I am satisfied that no man could have dictated the writing of the manuscript unless he was inspired, for when acting as his scribe, Joseph would dictate to me hour after hour, and then returning after meals and after interruptions, he would at once begin where he left off without either seeing the manuscript or having any portion read to him. This was a usual thing for him to do. It would have been improbable that a learned man could do this, and for one so ignorant and unlearned as he was, it was simply impossible. I find that amazing. Emma really does describe the fact that there's just no way that he could have just done that. And I agree. Oh, what did I just do that for? And then Oliver Cowdery, this is really weird to me because my experience with Oliver Cowdery, he writes a lot of stuff and then they just give one sentence, probably because he wrote so much stuff that they only could put one sentence in. I wrote with my own pen the entire Book of Mormon, save a few pages, as it fell from the lips of the prophet, as he translated it by the gift and power of God, by means of the Urim and Thummim, or as it is called by the book, holy interpreters. I beheld with my eyes and handled with my hands the gold plates from which it was translated. I also beheld the interpreters. I've already talked about the importance of 3 or more witnesses, and here we have 2 of many witnesses that, 2 of the main witnesses, I should say, 2 main witnesses. And we'll learn a little more about the witnesses, I think, next week. What I really got from this, though, is the magnificence of what went on. In my mind, I think of all the things that we learned and taught last year in the Book of Mormon, all the things that were brought into the Book of Mormon, as you see, like the chiasmus and all this other stuff, that there's so many theories out there, if you really wanted to go, of how Joseph Smith got the Book of Mormon, trying to discredit him, and none of it even comes close to what could have, that actually did happen. There's not one thing out there that I can think of that would go, hey, that's less plausible than an angel giving him the Book of Mormon and giving him and God giving him the power to translate. That's easy. That's simple. That's the truth. To think it was some other thing that he copied up from someone else's book, which, again, we don't talk about very much anymore because, they found a manuscript. Not members of the church. Someone else found the manuscript of that book, and it had nothing to do with the Book of Mormon. It had nothing to do with it, even though that's what was claimed. And so forth. Did he just make up a manuscript? No, he didn't. That's ridiculous and stupid. Did somebody else write it? Well, where are they? Why didn't they claim it? All these things are just ridiculous and stupid. And if somebody else did write it, how smart would they have to be? How smart would Joseph Smith have to be if he somehow made this up? He would have to know the future. Well, if he had to know the future, then he had to have revelation. Wait a minute. That goes back to what we actually said that it was supposed to be done in the first place. There's some amazing things in this, and the power by which it was done is amazing. And the time period which it was done is even more amazing. Even if you added a larger time period, it still would be amazing. Everything fits so perfectly, and you can't just ignore it. It's an amazing thing, and it's, I know for myself that the Book of Mormon is the Word of God, and that all that's in it is true. And therefore, Joseph Smith did see an angel. Joseph Smith did have the Urim and Thummim and the seer stone, and they aided him with the gift and power of God to do this. And there is no need for any particulars, as he says, because it was the gift and power of God. You know that the Book of Mormon was translated by the gift and power of God. You know everything that he knows, basically. Maybe not little particulars of how he did it, every single moment and everything, but you do know that it was the gift and power of God, and that's a powerful thing. And I hope that's what you get from it today. You just pick up the Book of Mormon and read a page today. See how it testifies of Christ. See how the language is. And you'll have to be amazed. How could he do it otherwise? How could he correct spellings that he never saw was misspelled until that moment? Anyway, I'm amazed at it. Amazed at the shortness of the time, the amount that was written in that time. I'd have a hard time reading the Book of Mormon in the same amount of time as they had to write it. And I think that's great. And I hope you do too. And I hope you have a wonderful day as you marvel at a marvelous work and a wonder.